So Abi, you have a lot of experience in data science and machine learning too. So what are the things the product or service that you have found more interesting this year from Oracle?
I think it's probably a mixture of everything that everyone's presented today. So, because I've got this great job that means I get to span across these technologies, I get to play with the SQL and the database and meet great people like Maria and Jean and see right down at the technology level what's going on. Myself and Helly, we like to go and play in machine learning models and see, what we can do. But as Deborah said, if we can't translate that to the business, then all that insight and data science is just going to end up on a shelf gathering dust and never actually get to the business who need it. So I think for me, the coolest thing is that we're seeing this kind of merge point of apps and tech and business and tech are all just coming to the table at the same time now, and we're all kind of going, hey, actually we could work together and really do something pretty powerful. And I think what I wanted to highlight was financial crime and compliance, which we've just gone live on with a client on OCI. So it's a very new project that's just gone live, but okay, it's a great story just to bring it to life for people. So if we just kind of go through it, why look at financial crime? Well, in the UK, so as you can tell from the accent, I'm representing the UK today. 64% of businesses have experienced financial crime in the last 24 months, and that is exponentially growing at the minute. So if you can imagine that in the UK, US, Finland, etc., they're all going through similar problems. So what do we need when we're doing financial crime? Well, we need to know what happened. Where did it happen? US versus UK. How did it take place? These days, it's not just your normal currencies that we have to worry about. We've got the joys of cryptocurrency and other Bitcoins and things like that. So we've got that to happen. We've got when did it take place? So, that spatial, the time element and understanding that. Why did it happen? So the context. Why Abi? Why did Abi have all her money stolen? What was it about Abi? And then who's involved? Dare I say Maria stole Abby's money? Who can prove that kind of thing? So, we've got to do a bit of financial crime and compliance on that. So what we mean is if I'm a bad person, I want to clean my money, I might give it to you, Adel, and that's a really simple network diagram to look for it, and we can clean the money that way. But we could get really complicated and go, I'll pass it to Deborah. Deborah's going to pass it to Helly. Helly's going to pass it to Jean. Jean's going to pass it to Maria, and Maria's going to pass it to Adel. Woohoo! We've cleaned our money. So again, we can probably use some fancy SQL tricks from Maria to find that little chain in the database. But what if we go even more complex? Well, now we're probably stepping into Jean's world of looking for complex networks and transfers of that money. So, maybe I give a little bit of the money to you, to Deborah, to Helly, to Maria, to Jean, and then they all give it to Adel to clean it. So these are the different kind of scenarios that we kind of have when we're looking at fighting financial crime. So, the normal way of looking at that would be pure rule-based. If it's $999, there's probably $1,000 limit and people are trying to dodge it. It might be, slowly evolving to crime behaviors. So especially things like the pandemic, we all shifted our behaviors very quickly. When a new crypto coin comes onto the market, our behaviors change again. Little things in our populations will change our behaviors and the way we spend money. Lack of deployment option, here we've just talked about so many different technologies, but back in the day, they used to be on all these different platforms. And how did we connect them all together? Well, the future is that actually we've got incredibly powerful technology now where we can bring machine learning, graph, natural language processing, open source, and RPA into one platform without too much difficulty. And that's essentially what Oracle have done with FCCM. So if we look at FCCM and how it looks to a business, so we'll come into Deborah's world in terms of, how does the business see this? The customer comes to the desk and they want to do a transaction. So I've come to the desk and I want to do a transaction. The first thing I need to do is screen me. Am I somebody who I want to transact with? So what we do is we can use tools like enterprise data quality management, EDQ, to look me up and check I am somebody I want to work with. Maybe I pass that and I go, yep, fantastic, you're good to go, Abby, you can transact. So I can then transact with the bank or with the financial institute. And essentially that then forms the first stage of the database. So we'll push that transaction into the database. We might do some more EDQ cleansing. Remember, the more context we have on who you are, where you are, what you're doing, why are you making that transaction, how are you making that transaction, the better we understand that journey of finances. So we use EDQ to look at watch lists and look at things like, are you politically exposed and things like that. And again, we gather that back in, but that central point, it goes right back into the database so we can use those technologies. Now we need to get it back to the business. So this is where Deborah's world comes in, and we can use, in my case, FCCM application to batch process and kind of process that and put it into the hands of the people on the front line. Ultimately, that's where someone might investigate one of those crimes and say yes or no, there's more investigation to be done, etc. And we then use Oracle Analytics Services to kind of report on what's happening. So you can see that actually we're using a lot of technologies, but they're all now working together to solve these crimes. So if you've never seen FCCM, this is kind of one of the application screens. We have different rules that we can build up. So occupation risk, it might be citizenship, residency, where's your primary citizenship versus your secondary. These are all rules that we can build. Now, Abby, you just said that rule-based isn't perfect, and you're right. That's not always what happens under the hood. Although it's called a rule name, it's essentially, it's a behavior that we've trained and modeled, and we'll come back to that in a second. So if I do find something a little bit interesting, maybe, you know, Ado, you've been doing something a bit, you know, funny with those transactions, we would then generate a case. So that doesn't mean we're automatically shutting down any transactions. We're just saying that we might need a bit more information. So we create what we call a case investigation or case management. And as Deborah said, this is where we can use application extension to bring in more of that context and information. And then we can build up screens like this where we can do a risk assessment. So we can look at the geo risks, the length of time that you've been working with that bank. We can add information, etc. But more importantly, at the bottom here, you'll see take action. So if I'm an investigator and I've done a really good due diligence on this case, and I think, yeah, okay, there's nothing further to investigate. It looks like it, you know, it was a little bit extra than normal. It's come from a pretty safe country. It's possibly just a bonus from their boss, for example. What I can do as an investigator is set the case here and assign it, give a reason why, and I might put some language in here, some comments as to why. So think about that. We've now got natural language processing within the database. We can process those comments from the experts, which can form an input to a machine learning model. So all of this brings us right back to moving to that next level. So we're using machine learning to look at scenarios and behaviors with things like deep learning, simulation, so simulating what happens, testing and tuning our thresholds, so how many people would get caught with that particular behavior. Does that create too many cases or too little cases? You know, we're looking at risk acceptance within the business. But more importantly is the last one, so graph-powered, discovering and automating those cases, because it's not just A to B, it's A to B to C to F to D to G, and that's where we get the power of graph. So then we can bring in things like the graph analytics to see who's linked to who, and we've essentially come full circle on our technologies, all within the same application that the business is using every day. And so with that, Ado, I've just done a whistle-stop tour of how I kind of bring the last parts of everyone back together again.
It's perfect. Wow, that was an amazing real case scenario to share the integration of everything that we have been talking about here. So thank you so much, Abby, for that.